presidential candidate Donald Trump. Last Friday, he attended a fundraiser for Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura. They also held a joint news conference.
This looks like we're here to announce that Donald has been signed as the #1 draft pick of the team. No, I'm sorry. You want me first? Hi, everyone. If you're not from Minnesota, welcome to Minnesota. If you're from Minnesota, hello. Good to see you. It's an enjoyment for me today to be here to welcome Donald Trump to the state of Minnesota. Donald is not exactly, I know from having dinner with him and being friends with him for a number of years, he doesn't care for the cold weather. So to get him here in Minnesota cold weather is a triumph indeed for us. But no, it's a joy to have him here today, and the speaking engagement that he had with the Chambers of Commerce this afternoon and the engagement that he'll share with me tonight. Tom.
I'd like to hear from both you and Mr. Trump your reaction to the possibility of the Reform Party candidate may not be allowed in the presidential debates.
Well, I'll answer for myself first, and then I'll let Donald Trump answer certainly for himself. I think it's despicable. I think it's a clear case of them fearing there could be another Jesse Ventura, and that they're going to stop in any way they possibly can, because for those of you that are national and weren't here in Minnesota when I ran, at the point of the primary, I was only polling 10%. Which means that if you went by their criteria, I would not have been allowed to debate and subsequently would have not won the election. And it also shows great fear on their part in the fact that a candidate like me can be at 10% and can turn around in a mere 6 weeks and win. And it's obviously clear to me that they don't want that to happen again. And I think it's cheating the American public. I think, as I said, it's despicable on their part. And I would hope people would be as outraged about it as I am. All other criteria and major party status is listed at 5%. 5% to be major party, 5% for federal funding and all that. Yet on debating, it's 15% now. And rest assured, if we came in with a 15%, they'd raise it to 20. It would be based upon whatever it takes to keep us out. Take a look at '92 when Ross Perot ran and got 19% of the vote. That's 1 out of every 5 people that voted for Ross Perot, and yet the next election he was cut out of it. And I think that it's unfair to put pollsters in that position. It's shirking the duty of what this committee is supposed to do. And now they're putting it onto the pollsters. Well, it's the pollsters that decide. Well, a poll can be skewered. I can go out and get you a poll on anything you want and probably get the results that I want, just in how I conduct it. And I think it's bad. It's terrible that lobbyists, professional lobbyists today are now deciding who will be allowed to debate for President of the United States. And it's obvious they don't want us in the Reform Party because they don't make money off us. They don't have influence with us. So typical to lobbying, they're being lobbied and they're now doing their lobbying. Pretty sad.
Well, I agree 100% with Jesse. It's disgraceful. It's amazing that they can get away with it. The Republicans and Democrats are the ones that, as you know, chose I guess you have 3 members of each, and they're the ones that chose. If you look at your lobbyists and everyone else, they're all Republicans or Democrats. And I'll add one additional thing. I watched the Republican debate last night, and I'll tell you what, if the right person was debating against whoever the winner of that group is, they'd have a major impact on the election, because that was not a very inspiring group of people that I was watching last night. So I think they're very concerned. I think they're extremely nervous about it. And I also think that probably the law will be changed in this case, or the rule may be changed in this case, Jesse, because it's just inconceivable to me that they can allow this to happen.
Would you be willing to go to court to challenge it?
I think I probably would. I mean, Pat Buchanan's right now in court. He's going to get nowhere probably, but the fact is that let him spend his money first. Let's see how he does. If he doesn't do it, we'll step in and maybe we can do something. But the fact is, it seems very, very unfair to me.
Would either of you guys get 15%?
Well, I think this guy would, and I think based on our polls we would, based on what we've done internally we would, if people think that I'm running, we do great. A lot of people say, oh, he's maybe not going to run, he's just having lots of fun. That's not the case. If people think that we're running, seriously running, we do very well. I just think it's unfair, though, regardless of that, to have such a high standard, a high criteria for a party that's a legitimate party, that has a substantial amount of federal funding, that's recognized, and where at some point during this process, somebody's going to be in all 50 states. Very unfair.
Will it discourage you from running?
No, I don't think it would discourage me from running. That wouldn't be the criteria. I think that we would come out with higher than that number at the appropriate time.
Mr. Trump, are you any closer to deciding whether or not to run for president? Are you hoping for the governor's endorsement? Governor, are you willing to give it?
Well, I have tremendous respect for Jesse. He's a friend of mine, but I have tremendous, beyond that, I have tremendous respect for Jesse. I always have. I've known him a long time. But I'm not here to ask for Jesse's support at this point, because in all fairness to Jesse, I haven't even made the determination to run. If I do, I'll be back here very quickly, because there's nobody's support that I'd want more than his. But at this point, and as I said before in our speech, I'm not here for that. I'm here as a friend of Jesse, and I'm a big supporter of Jesse. I think he's done a great job, and I have a lot of I'm in Minnesota. I come to Minnesota quite a bit over the years. I know a lot of people that live here, and they love this man. He's done an amazing job.
Governor, is Mr. Trump the kind of candidate you can endorse for president?
Again, as Donald said, he's not a candidate yet, but certainly if he announces that he will be a candidate, he will absolutely get my full consideration.
What does that mean?
Just what I said it to mean.
Does it mean endorsement?
He's not a candidate. I don't put the cart in front of the horse, and until he becomes a candidate, at that point he becomes the horse.
So are you waiting to hear more from him about his position on certain policies and which ones?
Certainly. I mean, I'm actually, as I said, I'm waiting to, if Donald decides to become a candidate, it'll be at that point in time. But I can't sit out here and say, yes, I'm endorsing Donald Trump when he's not a candidate, because if he makes the choice, which is certainly his choice, and the people close to him to make that choice, if he decides to the negative that no, he doesn't want to get in as a candidate, well, then that makes me look kind of stupid. You know, and I don't like looking stupid.
Do you have any major points of disagreement with Mr. Trump?
One at a time now.
Do you have any major areas where you disagree with Mr. Trump on policy?
I've been so busy governing Minnesota, I haven't dissected it down that far to really find out at this point in time. I'm sure we will have differences. There's no candidate in the world there's no two people in the world that'll sit side by side and agree on everything. But for the most part, I think that we could find a very agreeable position for most situations. Pat?
Governor, are you encouraging Mr. Trump to run?
Donald Trump doesn't need my encouragement. He's an individual, has been his whole life, and that is his choice to make. And at this time, I have taken a very neutral attitude on whether, because the choice needs to be his, and just as the choice to run for governor was mine. And that's his choice to make, and at the time that he makes that choice, I will respond to it accordingly.
Governor, how long can Mr. Trump wait before he makes an announcement to be a viable candidate?
Oh, I think he could wait as long. I think he has a definite waiting window. As I said in many interviews, when the press pulled me in and tried to make me a candidate, I said that my tactic would be to wait until the very end, because I think that number one, these campaigns have started far too soon. I mean, we're now getting campaigning 2 years ahead of the election. I don't know about you, but I get tired of it. Are we going to see ads on TV now here pretty quick? And, you know, enough's enough of that. And I think that their negative ratings will go up more than their positive ratings will between now and election time. So in my personal opinion, he has a window yet before he has to get into this. After all, our convention isn't until August, when the Reform Party will actually endorse a candidate to be their the candidate for president of the United States. And so it's 7 months away from August right now.
Mr. Trump, if you do decide to run, would you consider Minnesota a hub, an important key state for you, since This is the home of the leading Reform Party elected official in the country.
Well, Jesse's the one person that went out and not just with talk, he went out and got himself elected to be the governor of a major state. So, you know, he not only is Minnesota would it be important, but Jesse would be very important. And having, if I do decide to do this, which I very well might, Jesse's support would be very important to me in many ways.
Comments about the GOP and black people. Do you think that Mr. Gore should fire Donald Brazil?
Do I think Mr. Gore should what? Let Mr. Gore run his own campaign. We're doing things. I mean, let him, he's got his own problems. Let's see what he does. Let's see how he handles that particular problem.
Mr. Trump,
It'll be interesting.
who belongs to the Lucky Sperm Club? Is it Forbes or is it Bush? Because
This is an expression.
father, because of the...
Well, I don't want to, you know what, I don't want to use, a gentleman got up and said, oh, but Mr. Trump, you know, you have a lot of wealth and this and that, and other people have wealth. I said, yeah, but I created my wealth. There's a big difference between creating wealth and being a member of the Lucky Sperm Club, which a number of different people that are right now running are. I don't want to mention.
I'm not a member of that either. I'll throw.
There are a few of them out there. Yes.
In your book, you speak about how your candidacy might be more appealing in a time of economic distress. Is that one of the factors that's going into your decision? Wait-and-see attitude toward the economy in general?
Maybe a little bit, but I think generally speaking, a Reform Party candidate will do better when the economy isn't doing so bad. I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying that I think to get votes, a Reform Party candidate. Now, if the economy happens to tube in the next period of time, which hopefully it won't, but if it does, I think the Reform Party candidate would do better.
Let me offer something, too, though, to say that not necessarily does that hold true either, because my candidacy was during a time of great economic upswing, and I would say that right now, the key to the Reform Party, another key to a Reform Party success is not facing an incumbent, which in the presidential situation, it very much parallels the governor's race here in Minnesota. Governor Carlson was leaving office after 2 terms. You didn't have a seated incumbent in office, so it was very much up for grabs, as I think those two would parallel well with the presidential situation right now. President Clinton is leaving because his 2 terms are up, so you don't have to battle a seated incumbent, and that bodes well for a third-party victory.
So what did you make of Mr. Bush's comment yesterday saying that, so help me God, there will be a tax cut?
Actually, I was more personally me. I didn't see it till real late at night. I was watching the Timberwolves beat the Trailblazers, and you know, I haven't really been in focus with all the national issues governing Minnesota. I guess that's a promise. It sounds to me like one, that there'll be a tax cut. Is there a possibility of it? I don't think so. In the fact that I made a promise, nothing on Donald, don't take that at all to it, but I made a promise to the state of Minnesota to be the governor of the state of Minnesota, and I will fulfill that promise. And I just finished 1 year, a day or 2 ago was my anniversary. I have 3 more years to govern the state of Minnesota, and I will fulfill that promise and continue to be governor. Career politicians do that. I'm not one.
Who would be president between the two of you?
Do what?
Who would be president between the two of you?
He would.
If Donald Trump doesn't run, would you then support that again?
Unlikely. John Anderson would be, if Donald Trump doesn't run, I would support John Anderson long before I would Mr. Buchanan.
Governor, what are your advice to the Reform Party leaders who are literally split right now over such things as the location of the convention and other issues? What would your advice to them be?
Well, first of all, there are no split in the Reform Party leaders right now. Jack Gargan, as of January 1st, is the leader of the Reform Party. All others are former leaders. They're kind of like former Super Bowl champs.
Those former leaders went to court recently and succeeded, as you know, and so there is some that are feeling, what would would your advice be?
Well, my advice to be is that, as it's always been, that convention should take place in the state of Minnesota for tactical reasons, for reasons of getting the most publicity out of it. It belongs here. And when even the Reform Party leader of California agrees with that, what does that tell you? The convention belongs in Minnesota in the year 2000. There's no doubt about it.
On that point, would you urge the people who control the $2.5 million from the FEC for the Reform Party convention not to expend any of that money for one in Long Beach?
Yeah, I would encourage that. It belongs here in Minnesota.
Donald Trump earlier has said that he thinks that if he decides to run for president, that you would probably endorse him.
I didn't say that. When did I say that?
I see you're caught, you press. See if
He's the New York Post, don't worry. He's the New York Post.
See, if Donald wasn't here now, they'd have gotten away with that question.
Now look at him, he just hides his head. He doesn't even dispute.
See?
That's all right, New York Post. Okay, next question.
Did you back
concerned that because of this factional fighting, the Reform Party nomination might not mean very much, might not be such a good thing to have?
Look, this is a gentleman that's shown that you can be independent, whether you call it reform or anything else. You can be independent and win. There is some fighting. It probably will stop. You know, Jesse wants it here. Jesse is the only one that's really gone out there and done the real big job in terms of the big election of getting elected so far. I think you're going to have other successes, but he's really led the path. So he has a lot to say as to where the convention is going to be held.
And let me add some. Wait. Let me add something to that. I received virtually no help from the National Reform Party when I won this election here. So as far as all that goes, take that into perspective. That it's the campaign committees that do the labor force work of getting people elected, not necessarily national parties.
Skeptics who think this is more of a book tour promotion than a presidential campaign. Could you address that, please?
Well, I did in the other room, and the fact is I've done 3 books, and now this is the 4th. All 3 of my books have been #1 bestsellers. I don't need this for that. New York City is the hottest city in the world. I'm selling condominiums and buildings like crazy. I don't need it for that. I'm doing this very seriously. The book, whether it goes to #1 as the other 3 have, or whether it doesn't, is not a major factor economically. It's not a lot of money in a book, no matter how successful it is.
You'll still have dinner tomorrow night?
We'll still eat at Le Cirque or sometime. Okay. Maybe Jean Georges here.
What is it in your mind? You have this incredible...
Well,
Why do it?
I am looking very, very seriously as to whether or not it can be won. Look, very much like Jesse, you go out and you run. If I get 20% of the vote, big deal. People say, great job for 24 hours, great job. And not that it's a bad place, but I'm back in my office at Trump Tower the following Wednesday. So I'm looking as to whether or not I can win. If I can win, I believe I can do a very good job. Otherwise, I wouldn't be running. It's as simple as that.
You don't know yet if you can win? Is that the equation you're trying to balance?
Who knows? Does Bush know that he can win? 2 months ago, Bush had it made. Now they're questioning lots of things having to do with Bush. So you don't know. I mean, you're not going to know until after the election as to whether or not. But instinctively, I want to know that I have a good chance of winning. And if I think I have a good chance of winning, I think if I did win, I'd do a very good job. And under those circumstances, I'd run.
Mr. Trump, on that point, you had a packed house here today, but how have you done elsewhere in the country? What kind of feelings are you getting or vibes?
Well, it's been amazing. I mean, as I think you know, it's been amazing. We had 17,000 people show up in California. We had 14,000 people in Hartford, Connecticut. You know, it's a little disconcerting when you leave and you say, how many people am I speaking in front of? Your secretary says 17,500 people, and you never sort of heard of that. We have had a tremendous response. On television, we've gotten the highest ratings on Larry King and on virtually every show. And 60 Minutes is doing a big piece on January 11th, where I speak very brilliantly of him. But unfortunately, I'm sure they're going to cut that out. Don't worry about it. That was only for 5 minutes, and they did 2.5-hour interview. They'll cut all the good stuff out. But they're doing that on January. So it's been very strong.
A follow-up to a question that was asked before, in light of the recent events in the Reform Party, the turnover of the National Party chairmanship, the incorporation of Reform Leadership Council and the controversy over where to hold the convention, how or what will you do to bring this party together?
What will I do? I'm not the leader of the party nationally. My main job, as I've stated many times, is to govern the state of Minnesota. I am the governor of the state of Minnesota. Jack Gargan is the national head of the Reform Party. That's Jack's job. Rick McLuhan, where's Rick? Saw him a moment ago. Rick McLuhan is the head of the Reform Party of Minnesota. That is Rick's job to do. That is not Jesse Ventura's job. Certainly I will be supportive of Mr. Gargan. I will be supportive of Mr. McLuhan, but that is their job to do that. You have no idea what it's like to run the state of Minnesota. My schedule is extremely full, and I take that schedule very seriously, and I perform as the governor of Minnesota, which is my job and what I'm paid to do. I am not paid to be the Reform Party's head person. That is not my position.
Earlier you qualified, would you do anything to help bring the party together with different groups?
You're talking to me? I think I would, but there's some pretty deep-seated problems in the party in terms of that. But I have a feeling that Jesse's going to be a very, very dominant force in the party, no matter what happens. The man's a winner. You know, it's nice. The man's a winner. He's going to be a very dominant force. There's no question about it. Yes?
Both billionaires, there are many of them who probably know each other. You mentioned them in your book. What's going on with him? He seems to be the power behind this faction with him. Have you had any conversations?
Well, I don't know that he is. No, and I specifically haven't had conversations with him because it's not appropriate yet. But I don't know that that's necessarily the fact. There is some factionalism, but I'm not sure that Ross Perot is necessarily behind it.
What are your qualifications to deal with some of these foreign? What are your qualifications to deal with some of the foreign problems that you described, such as the issues with North Korea or Cuba? You've obviously got a lot of experience dealing with running a business and the national economy, foreign issues being, as you said, the most important subject. What are your qualifications?
Well, I think you all know what my qualifications are. I mean, we have done the best job in the biggest, toughest city in the world, and I've become the biggest developer in the toughest city where development is the ballgame, and that's the whole. In New York, it's real estate. In Texas, it's oil. I deal with foreigners all the time. I deal with foreign leaders all the time. I know many of the foreign leaders probably better than a lot of the so-called candidates that are running on the Republican and Democratic tickets. I think I'd get along very well with them. And I think you'd have a lot less gridlock in Washington if I decide to do this and if I won.
Are tact and diplomacy critical needs in business?
No, I don't think they're totally critical, and maybe we have too much tact and diplomacy in our dealings with some of the foreign countries that we deal with. And like Jesse, I believe strongly in free trade. But at the same time, I feel strongly that some of our trading partners are ripping us off big league. When spoken to properly, with tact and with diplomacy, but when spoken to properly, I don't think they'd be doing that anymore.
Mr. Trump, campaign strategy question. Jesse won by getting the youth out. Minnesota once again led the way, voting registration, easy done in Minnesota. You have a strategy to get the youth behind you for your candidacy?
Well, I think you'd get everybody behind, whether it's youth or not. Look, the Reform Party, like it or not, we happen to like it, but it is at a disadvantage when you compare it to two parties that have been there forever, the Republicans and the Democrats. I mean, these parties have 25% of the people will vote Republican or Democrat, no matter who's running. So you're off to a very, very, I mean, you really do have a big step to go before you even, so you have to get everybody. You have to get youth, you have to get elderly, you have to get middle, you have to get everybody. And if you don't get everybody, you're not going to win. You are at a disadvantage, there's no question about it. But I believe in looking at the other candidates from both parties, I'm just not very impressed. I'll be honest. I'm very unimpressed, as a matter of fact.
Let me add something, too. Yes, I did have a strong youth movement in my candidacy, but if you also looked at the statistics, I won every age group up to age 65.
You had the record turnout. Is that because you ran a dynamic campaign, something new?
Well, I'm always dynamic, but whether it's something, that's not new. But no, I think that it's, as Donald said, it's a case of you're not going to win with one age group. You have to have them all. You have to score well in them all. Maybe the youth put me over the top. They may have been that 3% difference between first and second place, no doubt about it. But had I not scored well with all the other age groups in there, that 3% wouldn't have been available to put me over the top. So, you know, you can't focus on one particular market, but certainly if you can have a dynamic campaign that inspires young people, those are voters that are not polled, which is another great disservice to this 15% we're talking about that we're supposed to get, because I never once, to show you how fraudulent polling can be, never once, not at one point during my election, was I polled to be the winner. There was not one poll that indicated Jesse Ventura would be the next governor of the state of Minnesota. Yet, when that November 3rd came, who won? And the polls didn't dictate who won, the voters dictated it, and I ended up winning that election when no poll indicated that in the first place. That's why it's fraudulent that they would set this type of thing up based upon polling results.
Governor, given that you said that you're probably not going to vote or you probably are not going to endorse Pat Buchanan, and John Anderson is pretty unlikely to run, he's said as much. Is there anyone else on the horizon that you could imagine endorsing other than Donald Trump?
I don't know. It's a long way away yet. Our convention's in August.
But I mean, do you see anyone else? Do you know of any other?
I haven't been searching for anyone. I mean, like I said, I'm no.
So you're probably going to endorse Donald Trump if he runs.
Again,
Well,
New York Post, Governor.
I know.
Don't worry about
That, no, I like the New York Post. They write all sorts of fabrications. They, the point of the matter is, when Donald becomes a candidate, ask me then. Until he makes that decision, it's all speculation. And believe me, if I believed in speculation, I wouldn't be the governor today.
So what do you have to talk about today?
Pardon me?
What do you have to talk about today?
Everything you've been asking us.
Governor, your state party attorney, Rick McClellan, has been quoted as saying, not sure how long you and he will stay in a reform party. Are you considering leaving because of turmoil and so forth?
I'm not a quitter. Never have been. And again, I don't cross bridges till I get to them. And at this point in time, I am still an active member of the Reform Party. I'm still the only elected Reform Party official at a high level anywhere in the United States of America. And when I was being asked to leave the Reform Party a few months ago, I also had more people calling me, begging me not to. There was far more people telling me not to leave the party than telling me to leave.
How appetizing is it? How appealing is it for you
To leave the party?
to stay in a party that is so riven and doesn't seem to have any compromise?
Oh, there's no problem there. You know, you all have to remember, this party hasn't even been in existence for a decade. We are new. We're still defining ourselves. Who are we? We just have difference of opinion in different portions of the party as to who we are. I believe we are centrist. I believe the party I want to be part of is what I ran on, and that is a very centrist attitude of being fiscally conservative and socially libertarian or liberal. And I believe that's the winning combination. I think if you start sweeping out to the far left or the far right, you will never win with that position. You will never at all win. And we want to be able to put forward a candidate that we believe has a chance to win. And by going to the far left or the far right, you're not going to win. It's as simple as that.
One more. The intrusiveness of the news media and your New York development, I'm sure, is a tough racket. Obviously, the casino business in Atlantic City, you must meet some interesting characters there. Are you concerned that reporters will be rummaging around in that closet, what your closet, late night monitor?
You know, I've been really an open book, as you know, for 15 years, 20 years. I would have thought if you would have found anything, you would have found it by now. I've been very much an open book. So, I don't care.
Well, I'm going to be as vocal about it as I can possibly be. I was very vocal about it on my radio show that I do once a week here in Minnesota, in allowing and educating the people on just what this is about, that this is not a nonpartisan group by any stretch of the imagination, that it's very clear, and history shows that when the third party begins to rise up, the other two parties will combine their efforts to destroy the third party movement. That's a fact. It's happened all through history and will continue to go on today. I just want to make sure the American public is aware and educated on that fact, that that's what happens. These two parties, as much as they claim to dislike each other or be at both ends of the spectrum, when a third party rises up, they will combine to try to defeat that third party and get rid of it. And I'll give you a quick example, if I may. When I ran for mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota in 1990, it was a nonpartisan election, no parties. Yet, the Democrats and Republicans co-signed a letter and mailed it to all the citizens of Brooklyn Park supporting the 20-year incumbent mayor and calling me the most dangerous man in the city. And all I did was pay my taxes and send my kids to public school. Yet I was the most dangerous man in the city. Now, after I won that election, 65% to 35%, and I won all 21 precincts, when it was all over, then both the Democrats and Republicans came courting me independently, wanting me to join their party. Well, it showed me a couple of things. It showed me first about them that the end justifies the means. Doesn't matter what you stand for as long as you win. And it showed me second that they have no credibility. How could they want the most dangerous man in the city now to join them? And it was at that point that I saw Dean Barkley signs and started seeing what was then the Minnesota Independence Party, and I started to align with them. When I looked at what they stood for, they seemed to be what I was. And so rest assured, as the story I told you, that these two parties will come together in any attempt to squash and stop any third-party movements.
Mr. Trump, do you plan to debate this with the
It's always very possible. It would be something that I would do willingly and gladly. I want to see how he does. He seems to have very, very little support at this moment. And I think his choice of a communist was not a good choice to help him get on the ballot, because he really sacrificed his principles. I mean, I can't speak for Jesse, but in all fairness, I thought that was a terrible choice in terms of his sacrificing principles. And I just don't think he's going anywhere. And I think if the Reform Party ever did choose him, if I don't run and they choose him, I think it's a disaster for the Reform Party.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Don